Without fail, whenever I post about being child free or the decision for anyone to be child free, there's always someone that's like, we don't need to have this conversation anymore. Oh, yes, honey, we sure do. I posted something on Threads like, because of all the stuff going on with the White House, I'm like, people need to know that you don't have to become a parent if you don't want to. Specifically for moms, for women, for younger women. I think it's really important to give younger women the message that you don't have to parent. So anyway, I said like, it doesn't make you a bad person if you choose not to have a kid, no matter what the reason is. And people are always like, well, this doesn't need to be said anymore. Without fail, let me tell you, over all of my social media networks, the most engaging content I have is all related to the decision to be child free. The hate comments, the nobody will love you, the who will love you when you get older, the you're selfish, you don't know true love until you've had your own kid, blah, 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 blah. I've heard it all. It doesn't faze me, but there are some people that are quiet on here that it does phase, and that is who I make this content for, because it consistently proves to be needed, regardless of what you think, regardless of where you live, even if you're in a more liberal area that is more progressive. I'm on the East Coast. People still judged me, even when I was in Philly. And with this current administration, I mean, again, regime, I think we really are going to be going backwards here. We're already seeing it. People are emboldened. People are hateful. People want more traditionalism and conservative values, and it ain't me. So I'm going to be here talking about my child-free life until the cows come home. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
So I'm about to turn 39. I'm single and child-free by choice, and I was having a conversation yesterday with my sisters, who are both 20 and 21 respectively, about how hard it is to be a woman my age and hold on to friendships with people my age, because ultimately people my age are getting married, having kids, and that's their whole life, understandably. And I'm completely okay hanging out with my friends and their kids every so often, but every single thing that I do, I don't want it to be like me sitting by while they're like yelling at their kids, you know? So I just talked about how I've kind of lost some friends, and like it's just like we kind of drifted apart because we are doing different things at this time. And that night, I get a text message from a friend who keeps canceling on me. She doesn't use TikTok, so she won't know this is happening, and nobody will know who I'm talking about. I'm like, oh my God, we haven't hung out in a long time. And she just said, hey, you want to go for a walk on Tuesday? And I was like, oh my God, yeah, totally. She was like, okay. And then we like organize it and da-da-da. And I was like, that's so exciting. So she has 3 kids. They're like 2 years old, 5 years old, and 8 years old. And I really love them. Like, they're very sweet girls. Like, I really care about them. But my friend asked me to hang out and go for a walk with her. And I thought it would be really nice because we haven't caught up in a long time. She had a new boyfriend. Like, I don't know. She went through a divorce. Like, I want to know what's going on in her life. So she texts me today and she goes, hey, so what are your thoughts about maybe making this a little Earth Day play date for everybody? When my, insert the names of her kids, found out that I was hanging out with you, they got really jealous and they wanted to come. So I was thinking, like, we'll go to the same place that we were going to take a walk, but we'll go to their playground. What are your thoughts? And I'm thinking, I just got bamboozled. Like, it's not that I'm not happy to do that. I'm really not unhappy to do that. I would say no if I truly was like, no. But this was presented to me as one thing and then asked if I was okay for it being another thing. And it set me up for, what am I supposed to say? No. Like, how am I supposed to say that to my friend about her kids? Or how am I supposed to say, like, hey, I'm happy to do that, but like, you know, I was kind of hoping we had time together. And I know everybody's going to be like, you should say that, a good friend, blah, blah, blah. We all know that people are not emotionally mature. We all know that it's difficult. And especially when it comes to people's kids, like, they get really defensive. And then she's going to start thinking I don't like her kids. Like, but basically it's like now I'm doing that. And I didn't want to do that. And I feel bamboozled. I don't like that it was like a bait and switch. I'm sure that everybody's going to attack me for this. Again, it's just about, like, sometimes I just want adult time, you know? Or, like, if we're going to do that, I want to be aware of that ahead of time before I agree to plans. And then you kind of, like, tell me, oh, hey, by the way, my kids are coming in. Instead of a walk, we're going to go to the playground.
A woman who does not fall for societal's conditioning that you only have value if you get married and have kids is a huge threat, especially to men who are in the same position as her, which is incredibly ironic. The men who I notice react the most strongly to women who don't want to get married and don't want to have kids are the men who are not married and either don't have kids or have baby mamas. Like, I'm just going to keep it a buck. And as a woman who's had to navigate this choice that I made, which they also don't believe it's an intentional choice. They believe it's a circumstance because you just couldn't, or you were only going for the top 10% or 20% or whatever random statistic they say. As a woman who's had to navigate this choice, I can tell you, I felt the most empowered dating when I made peace with the fact that I don't want to have kids and I'm okay if I don't get married. Now, I've always wanted partnership. I always wanted a really healthy, romantic, passionate partnership. But I'm not going to lie when I tell you that marriage kind of scares me. And it's in part because of my parents. So maybe I have a different outlook than other people, but my parents are married for almost 30 years and it was not a good marriage. All I saw of marriage was my father kind of constantly being irritated with my mother constantly trying to please him, my mother going to work full time and taking care of kids, taking care of the house, doing the emotional labor. And I was like, yo, that shit looks exhausting. Why would anybody sign up for that? So I had to tease that out for myself. Like, okay, do you not want to get married because of maybe the baggage from your parents' marriage? Or do you just genuinely not want to get married? Or do you not want to get married because you haven't met the man that made you want to get married, right? Because I saw up close and personal what it looks like when you don't marry a man who is a good partner. And I think it has such a huge impact on women. It impacts our life tenfold, especially if you have kids. If you marry a man that doesn't know how to be a good partner and doesn't know how to be a good husband. And that's just something that I never wanted for myself. I also thought about the kids thing and I thought about, okay, do you actually want kids? Because I have friends that have done in vitro fertilization that are moving forward with having kids alone because they knew they always wanted to be a mother. They were like, yeah, being a wife, I want that. If it doesn't happen, I'll be sad, I'll get over it, but I won't get over not being a mother. And I didn't have that intensity of feeling either. I was always kind of ambivalent, but I was conditioned that this is something that you should strongly want or desire. And society tells you every step of the way that if you don't do these things as a woman, there's something wrong with you. And so it was hard for me to accept that this wasn't necessarily what I want. It's almost like I had to deprogram myself. I had a friend who was actually saving money for her wedding because she knew she wanted a big wedding before she even had a man. Like I've never had that level of desire. And so this takes me to the Joe Budden podcast when Melissa was having a conversation with Ish and they were talking about Tracy Ellis Ross. And I felt like Ish's reaction again was from those dudes who are most threatened by women like Tracy Ellis Ross. So I would love to hear from y'all. Are you a woman who has made a decision that you don't want to get married or you don't want to have kids or both? And how did you arrive at that decision? Was it just always easy for you? Was it innate? Did it come after some self-reflection? Did you have difficulty arriving at that decision because maybe you thought you might regret it one day, which is also something that, I really had to think hard on. Like, will you regret this? When you imagine your life, will you feel like you missed out? And it took a lot of time, a lot of reflection, but my honest answer is no, I won't. So love to hear from y'all. And if you like my content, please comment with 5 or more words. Like I would love to have a really robust, engaging conversation. Share with the link, save, and follow.
I'm just gonna tell you, all of that respect your elders shit, some of them are fucking dumb. Just because they're old does not mean anything. A man asked me about my Easter the other day and was like, yeah, how did it go? And I was like, oh, it was great. I just caught up on my sleep. I did my chores, blase. I don't have any kids, so I didn't do any Easter egg hunting. And he was just like, well, we're meant to be fruitful and multiply. You gotta have some kids. You know how many women die on the table? You know the complications that come with pregnancy? And you just, this is what you let come out your fucking mouth? Mind you, let's not even get into the women who can't bear children. What if you were talking to somebody that was impacted by that? Now you've just triggered something in that person's brain. But you're so fucking ignorant and you just go around saying this shit to people that you don't even know. What if the person would have had a miscarriage and fucking just started crying on the spot? You'd have just reignited this person's trauma. All of that to say, like, please talk to your elder grandparents, older people in your life to stop with that dumb ass mindset. Like, especially strangers in public.
I can't imagine having kids because how are you supposed to parent after work? Once my workday's over, I slam that laptop shut and then it becomes me time. The post-work rot is so important for my mental health. I just can't imagine someone screaming at me being like, what's for dinner? Give me a bath, read me a story, after you just worked your ass off for 8 hours a day. I want to relax. I want to garden. I want to sit outside. I want to read. I want to watch my reality TV. And my peace is not to be disturbed. Lights out by 9:30, 10 o'clock. I'm sleeping for 8+ hours, baby. That's why the child-free life is going to be the life for me.
You don't want kids. I've never wanted kids. Couldn't think of anything worse than having kids for me. For me. It's got nothing to do with you. Okay? Cool.
I'm curious, when did you, as a child-free by choice woman, start to realize that you didn't want children?
I was a teenager and I had this deeply uncomfortable realization, and it was uncomfortable because I knew that it was true. I recognized that the vision that I had for my life was incompatible with motherhood in this society. You see, I looked around at all the mothers that I knew, and none of them were the main characters of their lives. Not only were they supporting characters, but they were supporting characters whose efforts were largely ignored. Most of these women had reduced the entirety of themselves to their role as mothers and poured everything in their heart into their families, only to have their families barely notice, let alone acknowledge it. Imagine pouring the entirety of yourself and just having it disappear in the ether, unseen by anyone. As a side note, my dad did constantly affirm my mom's contribution to our family, but she still didn't escape this supporting character phenomenon. This is how it became clear to me. I was a Texas cheerleader in high school, if you know, you know. And so many of the cheerleader moms lived vicariously through their daughters. I simultaneously felt really sad for them that they were drawing all their meaning from that well of their daughters' popularity. I was also angry because what they were doing was like foisting upon their daughters this mirror to reflect back the version of themselves that they had long lost. They were exploiting their daughters to get just a taste of main character energy because it had been so long since they felt it. Because these women pour the whole of themselves into their families, and then suddenly when their children are old enough to where they need them less or don't need them at all, suddenly these women often face an identity crisis because they've given up everything else that they were, and it wasn't often their choice. So I looked around the world with a little bit of desperation, trying to find women who were able to maintain their main character energy while being a mother, women who lived into the fullness of their dreams for themselves. And you know what I found? Every single one of them was criticized for doing that, was labeled a bad mother for doing that. How dare they not prioritize their family at every turn, in every moment? I knew I didn't want to walk that tightrope myself, but I still was trying to find a way to make it work. I took classes in college. I took a class called marriage in college. In law school, I took a class called law and economics of work and family, to study the family unit, to see if there was a way to hack this. I never found it. Now I see some women who have managed to walk that tightrope, but even these women, they still have to swipe back at insinuations that they're not a really good mother as a result. Now, I did have parenting energy to spend, and I was able to do so by being a stepmother. That experience was the Goldilocks of parenting for me because no one had any expectations for me. Everything that I did was a bonus. I got to pour love into them and then stop to make sure that I still had some love in my cup and no one judged me for it. Anyway, it has become crystal clear to me that we're not going to achieve anything remotely close to liberation for women until we solve for this.
I'm a mom of 4 kids, and something I cannot get over is the way that people try to convince women who are child-free by choice that they actually want kids. They'll say things like, oh, no, you say that now, but you'll see, you'll want them, or, oh, just wait, once you fall in love, you're going to want kids. Doctors will even say, no, ma'am, I can't tie your tubes, you're too young, you're going to change your mind. As if women don't know what they want for themselves. It is wild. And I often even see it in dating and marriage. Men will date women who say they do not want kids. And then they think they can convince them to have kids. And they spend years trying to tell her that she does want kids. And then if they break her down, if they are successful in doing so and getting her to have children with them, they are then shocked when she doesn't fully enjoy the experience of motherhood. It is crazy to me that women will say what they want, and people will tell them that just can't possibly be true. That just can't be true. And it's crazy because society tells us that, as a woman in particular, our ultimate job is to be a mother. And so it is really difficult for many women to say, no, I don't want kids. I will never want kids. That is a difficult thing to say in this society because people then look at you and say, well, then what are you good for? And women and men have value whether or not they have children and a family. You don't need kids to have value in our world. And honestly, as a parent, I always encourage people, if you don't think you want kids, definitely don't have them. You cannot go in this halfway. You're all the way in, right? So let's start listening to women. And if they say they don't want kids, believe them. Don't date them. Don't marry them, hoping you can change their mind. Don't tell them what to do with their reproductive organs. Just let them live their life. Let them be, please. Because women know what they want. They know what they want and they are allowed to say that and they are allowed to stick by that, and we should honor that.
I'm child free, and my favorite quote is, fuck them kids. I'm child free, so that means I'm only responsible for me. I'm child free, and I can eat girl dinner any day of the week. I'm child free, and when someone asks me, do I have kids? I say, hell no. I'm child free, and I'm gonna quit that job because I don't have no mouths to feed. I'm child free. I don't think I'm selfish for putting my mental health first in this economy. I'm child free. I'm always down to go to brunch any day of the week. I'm child free, and when a circumstance come up, I'll be like, at least I don't got no kids. Thank you, God. I'm child free. I stay away from them baby daddies because they're contaminated in my eyes. I'm child free. Just because I don't want no kids don't mean I hate them. I'm child free. Yes, I will meet you in Miami by noon.
So I just got done with a hearing in Fort Worth, but real quick, I want to tell you about one of my favorite clients that I've ever had. And if you're child-free and have ever wondered about an elderly woman's opinion on being child-free, you should listen to this. So my client is she's like 5 foot nothing, has this sleek silver bob, super stylish, super confident, like homegirl's got it going on. And she's got the most fascinating life story. So she's widowed now, but her and her husband had traveled all over the world. She has started different businesses. She has started different foundations. She's a published author, an artist, a philanthropist. Like, she still teaches painting lessons. Just the most interesting, inspiring woman, just super neat. So during our conversation, I learned that she never had children. And I asked her, this is not relevant, and do not feel obligated to respond, but do you have any regrets about not having kids? And she looks at me with just this, like, I don't know, I can only describe it as like a very peaceful, knowing smile. Like, she has been asked this question before, and she told me not a single one. She said, I love the children in my life, my nieces and nephews' kids. That's all great. But I always knew that I couldn't have the life that I wanted or had the relationship with my husband that I did if I had had kids. And I'm 33, I'm happily married, happily child-free, but it's always so interesting to talk to somebody else who has chosen that same life path as me and is a lot further down the road, and to have them report back that, like, it's really good. You're on the right path. I don't know, just an interesting talk, and maybe somebody will find it helpful.
Let anybody tell you that choosing to be child-free by choice is not a good way to live a life. Just talking to my brother, and he was telling me about a couple that he knows that their parents were pressuring them about when they were going to be grandparents. They had a baby probably sooner than they would have liked, and now they're stuck paying like $1,500 a month on childcare. Meanwhile, the parents are like, okay, it's your kid. Now, I understand it's a parent's responsibility to take care of their kid, but the point is that so many of us get pressured into having kids, A, sooner than we want to, and B, just at all. Like, I have never wanted to have kids, and I have felt such a pressure from society to have kids because it's the love you'll never know. And that's just not true. This is not a dig on anybody who wants to be a parent. A lot of my friends are having kids, and I love being an aunt. I have built a beautiful life for myself sans kid. I have my career, I have hobbies, I have free time, I've spent really healing myself. I focus on my personal growth. I get to see my friends. I get to make time for developing new adult friendships. I have time to develop adult hobbies, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having a life. You can have a very rich life without kids, just not talked about in our society. And it's BS. It's BS to think that the only way that you can fulfill yourself is to get married and to have kids. That is just some corporate propaganda to get you to have more kids, to continue to pump minions into a system that now is not working for us.
This is like the 5th time that I've tried to film this video, and I'm hoping that it'll be my last because I keep on trying to gather what I actually want to say. But basically, I'm 26 years old and I no longer want kids, and this is why. I've always been known to wanting to have kids, wanting to have a family, but I never had any specific good reason to have a kid other than I think they're cute, and that's literally my only reason, and I don't know if that's a good enough reason anymore. For me, personally anyway. There are the parts of me that feel a bit guilty. My parents aren't going to have grandkids. That might change. Like, in 5 years' time, I might come back and be like, hey, now I want kids. But as of right now, I just don't see myself having kids. I want to be able to travel. I want to buy a house. I like being able to go out. And if I want to go out late at night to a bar or something, I don't have to worry about anyone else but myself. I've never been good at saving money. I'm a spender. And I know for a fact that if I have kids, it might not change, and I don't want to have to deal with the pressure of having kids and never having any money, because I am just not in good control with my money, and that's just the truth. There's also the responsibility factors of it, where I can barely look after myself, and when it comes to having the responsibility of looking after another person, I don't think I'll actually be able to do that. The loving side of being a mum, I think I will be really good at, but I just don't want to put myself through that responsibility and the stress of everything that comes with it. I've also done some research on why other people might not want kids, and whenever it's a guy saying that he doesn't want kids and these are his reasons, everyone's really supportive, but when it's a woman saying why she doesn't want kids, everyone attacks her. This is what you're meant to do. I don't think women are meant to actually have kids. It's not what we're made for. Yeah, we can have kids, but we shouldn't feel obligated to. There's also the last reason, which will probably be the main reason, the biggest reason of there are so many different things happening in this world with the environment and the government, and I don't think I want to be responsible of bringing someone else into this world and then having to deal with all of that later and the stress of everything. Life is hard, and I don't want to put someone else through that just because I wanted to have a kid. I also don't want to be made to seem like I'm this horrible person who just all of a sudden hates kids, because I'm not, and I don't. I love kids, but I just don't want to be put under the stress of it anymore. And looking further into my life and imagining it without kids makes me feel happier than when I was imagining my life with kids. Now, basically all of my friends have kids, and I love their kids. This doesn't mean that I all of a sudden just hate them and despise them. I love their kids, and they're really happy with them. But I've kind of just decided that I don't think I want them anymore. And I think that's fine. I think it should be fine. It's just sort of the brief reasonings of why I don't. I've tried to film this video for probably about 40 minutes because I've been trying to gather out what I wanted to say. And it's scary because I'm kind of pushing back the old me who really wanted kids, and all I wanted to do in life was have kids, and now all of a sudden it's no, I don't. So if anyone has any questions, just comment. If you know me personally, flick me a message. Yeah, it's wild to think about, but I'm also happy with that decision. And like I said, it might change. I might meet someone and decide, oh, I actually want to have kids with this person. Who knows? But as of right now, I don't want kids, and that alone makes me happy.